You might think esports is a modern phenomenon, but the history actually goes back much further than you'd expect, arguably starting the moment the personal computer debuted. It really kicks off in 1958 with one of the first recognized games, Tennis for Two. Created by William Higginbotham, this wasn't played on a TV, but on an oscilloscope. Two players used controllers to hit a ball over a net, and the first to get it past the other won the match. Fast forward to 1972 at Stanford University for the first known competition, the Intergalactic Space War Olympics. It was actually organized by Rolling Stone magazine, and the grand prize wasn't $1 million. It was a one-year subscription to the magazine itself. Things really exploded in 1980 with the Space Invaders competition, which drew over 10,000 participants. By the 90s, fighting games like Street Fighter and shooters like Doom laid the true foundation for organized professional gaming. Today, fueled by the internet and platforms like Twitch, YouTube, Kakao Talk, Youku, etc., we've gone from those early LAN parties to a billion-dollar industry. We now have global, televised tournaments for titles like League of Legends that are watched by millions. Let's zoom back in on that 1972 Stanford day, because it wasn't just one match. They actually held two events, a standard competition and a five-person free-for-all. The players piloted ships with names like Birdie, Funny Fins, Pointy Fins, Flatback, and Roundback. It was chaotic. You could drop mines, but you also had to avoid the gravitational pull of the star in the center. In the end, Robert E. Moss and Slim Tovar took the team title, while Bruce Baumgart won the free-for-all.
But contemporary esports really has its roots in face-to-face arcade battles. In 1974, Sega launched a massive forerunner to modern tournaments called the All Japan TV Game Championships. This was designed to boost sales and hype, and it was huge. They held local qualifiers in 300 locations. The 16 finalists met at Tokyo's Hotel Pacific to fight for prizes like color TVs, cassette recorders, and transistor radios. Sega called it the biggest event ever in the industry at the time, proving that tournaments were the key to building relationships between makers and players. Then in 1977, we saw the rise of true pros. Gremlin Industries ran a marketing stunt for their snake game, Hustle, featuring the Gremlin Girls, a pro duo named Sabrina Osment and Lynn Reed. They toured 19 American cities playing best-of-3 matches for cash prizes. They were absolute sharks. Out of 1,300 challengers, only about 7 people managed to beat them. Then came the Golden Age. It started in 1978 with Taito's Space Invaders, which popularized the idea of a persistent high score. By 1979, games like Asteroids let players enter their initials, and suddenly, high score chasing became a serious competition. This led to the first massive event, Atari's 1980 Space Invaders Championship. It drew over 10,000 participants across the U.S., establishing competitive gaming as a mainstream hobby, and was won by Rebecca Heineman. Around this time, an arcade owner named Walter Day traveled across America recording high scores. When he returned to Iowa, he founded Twin Galaxies, the organization that started tracking records for the Guinness Book of World Records. In 1983, they formed the U.S. National Video Game Team, touring cities with the Electronic Circus and turning players like Billy Mitchell into minor celebrities in magazines like Time and Life. This really created the marketing blueprint for modern esports. But if you think 10,000 players is a lot, listen to this. In 1984, Konami and Centuri held an international track and field competition. It drew over 1 million players from Japan and North America. As of 2016, Guinness still lists it as the largest organized video game competition of all time.
Esports was hitting TV too. We had the show Starcade, which ran 133 episodes of high-score battles. In the UK, the BBC show First Class featured games like Hypersports and Paperboy. By January 1987, the Amusement Players Association held a major competition where VS Super Mario Bros. Became the go-to game for competitive players. Before we jump fully into the 90s, we have to talk about a massive foreshadowing of modern esports that happened in 1988, a game called NetTrek. This was the third internet game ever created, but it was the first to use meta servers to locate open games and the first to have persistent user information. It was written almost entirely in cross-platform, open-source software and supported up to 16 players. In fact, Wired magazine credited it in 1993 as the first online sports game. But while online play was brewing, the 90s marked a massive shift in how we competed, the move from high scores to head-to-head battles. The game changer was 1991's Street Fighter II. Before this, you were mostly competing against a scoreboard. Street Fighter popularized direct, face-to-face competition to determine the best player. This paved the way for the deathmatch modes we see in modern action games. The explosion of fighting games like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom actually led to the founding of the legendary Evolution Championship Series, or EVO, in 1996. This was also the era of massive corporate tournaments. In 1990, the Nintendo World Championships toured the U.S., holding its finals at Universal Studios Hollywood. They followed up in 1994 with the Nintendo Power Fest 94 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Out of 132 finalists who battled in San Diego, Mike Irarosi took home the first prize. Blockbuster Video got in on the action too, running their World Game Championships in the early 90s, co-hosted by GamePro magazine. This was truly international. Citizens from the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and Chile were all eligible. By the 1994 championships, players were competing in titles like NBA Jam and Virtua Racing. Esports was even taking over television globally. In the UK, you had shows like Games Master and Bad Influence. In Canada, there was Video and Arcade Top 10. And in Australia, the game show Amazing featured a final round where contestants competed in a video game face-off. But the biggest leap toward the industry we know today came from PC gaming and internet connectivity. Inspired by fighting games like Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, ID Software's John Romero decided to bring that competitive spirit to shooters, establishing Doom's deathmatch mode in 1993. This exploded into the 1997 Quake Red Annihilation tournament. This is often cited as the first true large-scale esports event, establishing Dennis Thresh as the premier pro gamer. That same year, 1997, saw the founding of the Cyber Athlete Professional League, CPL. They introduced formal tournament structures and significant cash prizes for games like Counter-Strike, Quake, Warcraft, and StarCraft. Speaking of StarCraft, the launch of Brood War set the stage for South Korea's future dominance in the scene. And that is how esports grew from a glowing dot on a 1950s oscilloscope into the absolute powerhouse of the late 90s. We went from winning a Rolling Stone magazine subscription at Stanford to dropping quarters in massive arcade tournaments, all the way to early internet deathmatches and the birth of professional PC leagues. But as crazy as this evolution was, the 90s were just a warm-up. In part 2 of this video, we're entering the modern era. We'll explore the following years where the explosion of broadband internet, the launch of streaming platforms like Twitch, and the rise of giants like League of Legends transformed competitive gaming into a billion-dollar global empire with sold-out stadiums and multi-million-dollar prize pools. You won't want to miss it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified the second Part 2 drops. Thanks for watching.